States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, has council had the opportunity to review the meeting minutes from March 21st? If so, I'll look for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Motion from Robin, second from Becky. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor can state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Any changes to this evening's agenda? Hearing none, I'll ask for a motion to approve the set agenda.
I move we approve the agenda as presented.
I'll second.
Motion from Mike, second from Rick. Those in favor may state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Becker Police Department 2022 Annual Report. Chief Balloon.
Well, thank you, Mayor, Council. Good evening. Feeling a little bit better tonight, so in the essence of time again, we'll try and get through this really quick. But my estimation would say that this is the 17th time I've been in front of you to be able to present this to you. I do think it's vitally important for me as the police chief to get in front of you to be able to at least describe and talk about what has the police department done over the past year with the $1 million that you give me as a budget. So, you know, especially in the day and age that we live, I think some transparency is very important. So I'll just kind of go through this. I put up the PDF file just so you can see every page as we kind of go through it. And if you have questions or you'd like me to stop on certain things, just let me know. But I'll point out a couple of things as we go through this. I will mention, just right there real quick, you know, the police department this past year lost our Facebook site. Facebook was nice enough to take that away without much of a warning. I don't know why yet, or we still don't know why, but it went away. We did find a way to bring it back, so we do have a Facebook site back at the police department. So we do try to put as much information out as we possibly can to the public when things are kind of going on or occurring. So I would tell people just to keep an eye on social media for messages or whatever is kind of going on involving us. This past year, 2022, you were gracious enough to give us another police officer, Officer Tristan Mello. We did receive the go ahead to hire him first of the year, but after schooling and stuff like that, we were able to get him on board by July 1. So what that did for us is allowed us to put him in like a 2 p.m. to 2 a.m. shift. I'll get to that and the reasons why a little bit later in my presentation here, but it's been an immense help. He's done an exceptional job, so we've kind of put him in that kind of power shift is what we call it, midday. Some of the things that we've done in the community, we had a new event this past year, as you know, Donut Day. That's, I think, gonna end up becoming a yearly thing for us now, very popular among the other events that we do. Of course, we just had a Coffee with the Cops event as well recently. We'll do that as well. But the Donut Day, I will say we handed out over 250 donuts and juice and stuff like that. Very popular, very well received. So when Kindness Day hits again in November, we'll probably be doing that again. So Coffee with the Cops, we'll probably have that, I'm guessing maybe this summer we'll try and do another one. People seem to really like that too. One thing to note, you've seen this before here in Becker, is SafeWise has identified the city of Becker as the 18th safest city in the state of Minnesota. Now we've been on the list before, we've gone off the list, or got a little bit further down the list before, so it does fluctuate somewhat, but we do our best to try and maintain obviously a safe city here, and this year we were rewarded with kind of that distinction. Comparatively to the cities around us, I would still contend we are probably the safest city. Statistics kind of point to that, so pretty proud to say that we made the list this past year again. Budget-wise, very quickly, again, the approved budget for this past year is $1.178 million, and we were able to finish about, our calculations would put us at about $20,000 under overall budget-wise. So on the revenue side, didn't quite hit the mark, a couple thousand short of that, but still respectable. A couple things on that, which I'll mention, is the Towards Zero Death monies that we do get. You know, the extra shifts that the officers can work for DUI enforcement, seatbelt enforcement, monies are diminishing through the federal level. So we've got, as you can tell, we went from 6,000 in 2021 down to 3,000 in 2022. So the extra shifts that are allowed to the officers are getting less and less. That combined with the fact that I will say, just the nature of the beast, if you will, and how things are in society right now, officers are a little less willing to work shifts because of putting themselves at more risk. You know, as far as legal things going on and that sort of thing. And I think it's important that you know that. So we'll continue to kind of keep an eye on that and see where it goes as far as funding and the amount of shifts that we can try and get to, you know, patrol our streets and that sort of thing. On the training side of things, a couple things I do want to point out. Officers last fall completed first responder training again. We do that every couple of years. As you know, at the last council meeting, one of our officers received a life-saving award, so I think there's obviously a great benefit to having our officers trained at that level. One thing we are noticing is communities around us are going away from that. And I think it's primarily financial reasons, but they're going more towards a first aid type of response and having ambulance do most of the other stuff, where we here are trained up a little bit higher, and we will continue to do that. So the other thing is the field training program. We changed our program last year with a new manual, new training process. All of our full-time officers are now trained as field training officers, along with Lieutenant Lindblom, who's trained on the management level of overseeing a program like that. And then the other thing I did want to point out related to training was the peer support and wellness. That's a big thing we've kind of taken on this past year, and especially moving into this year, kind of a charge that I'm kind of left with is to see what we can do to help our officers out, as well as how we deal with things outside of our department as well. So training, making sure we have the resources available for those that might need it. As you know, part of that too goes into the co-responder program that we have with the police department and the surrounding agencies. We've got a person that's trained in dealing with crisis and counseling and stuff like that. So if we have a mental health issue that's going on out in the community, we can make sure he's assigned or get the people the resources through him for follow-up and for getting them the help that they actually need. So that's working very, very well. Statistical, I will say this, years ago, the first time I actually gave this presentation, Phil will remember this, Ken Paulson, who was the mayor at the time, he kind of said to me, what does this all mean? And to me, it's all a matter of, if I come to you as a council and say, I need another police officer, the obvious question is why and what are you going to do with them? And this helps identify the need. So when we can actually start pinpointing the need of, between 3 and 1 a.m., we have a significant number of calls for service. Combined with the fact, you move in past that up into the days of the week, no surprise, the latter part of the week is our busiest time frame. And we can even take it a step further and even identify the month. So June, July, and October, not sure why we have October there, but those tend to be the busier months for us as well. So that helps us identify the need, where we want to put them, and we can even get down to, just the time frames and stuff like that, and maybe what they'll be doing beyond that. So you look at the numbers there, 5,800 calls for service this past year, up from 5,700. We're already trending in 2023 higher. So, and that's no surprise to me, now that we have Tristan kind of full-time into our staff. I suspect we're going to be higher this year as well. So the other things that we report on are the Part 1 and Part 2 crimes or offenses, which are reported nationally and to the FBI. So that kind of helps identify crime rates and truly how safe our city really is. As far as Part 1 offenses, we're actually down a couple this past year from 2021, which is good. We don't have significant serious crime here, as you can tell, and that's a good thing. As far as Part 2 crimes, we're also down there as well considerably, and I think that's why we hit the SafeWise list this past year, is because our numbers are down for even insignificant type of crime, less severe types of crime, I would say, which includes DUI. Those were down this past year. Disorderly conduct, types of calls were actually up, and we're starting to see a trend there. People that don't want to listen and would rather fight. Unfortunately, we're seeing more of that. Time will tell. So, and then of course, I always point out the traffic stops. That's one of the more visible things that we do. I think it's important that out of the number of traffic stops, I always put in here the number of warnings so people can see that it's not about money. That's what we hear quite often, is you're making traffic stops and writing tickets to generate funds. This proves otherwise. 4 out of 5 people are given warnings. And so we've got a 79.2% warning rate, which I think is respectable. That is a higher rate than most agencies around us. So truly, I think that illustrates education is more important than the tickets itself. Certainly, at times it's warranted, and those guys are certainly going to write those if need be. And lastly, I would point this out, our reserve program has been a significant help to us in the past, but like with any hiring in any other department or whatever, we're finding it really hard to hire reserve officers as well, the volunteers. So we've got 4 of them right now. We've had as many as about 8 or 9 before. So the numbers are reflected in the hours there, and I suspect it's just going to be tougher as we move forward. But we will continue to try and keep our reserve units strong, and get kids. Typically, students or kids in here that want to be police officers that are willing to donate the time and get some experience and exposure. So, that being said, I don't know. Do you have any questions on anything? Again, I just wanted to make sure I get an opportunity in front of you, and if you have questions, yes, sir.
I got 2. One, what is the criteria for the safe city standing?
It goes by crime rate. So what they're analyzing is, well, population, crime rate. There's a bunch of demographical kinds of things I think they throw into that as well.
But it has a lot to do with what you actually report or what you.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And then on your, I don't know why I thought of this, but do you ever write anybody a second warning for speeding or something?
Depends on the nature of the stop. Officers, as we know, are allowed a lot of discretion to write tickets. And, if you catch somebody at 2 o'clock in the morning speeding, nobody's around.
No, let's say I was going, I got a warning.
Yep.
Today. Next month, I'm.
Today.
Oh, it's the personal question.
Am I gonna get a ticket or possibly another warning? That's what I'm asking.
Hypothetically,
Is that possible?
on
Yes.
73 on a motorcycle in a school zone, would they get a ticket?
You don't want it to be the same officer, maybe, though. So,
what I'm wondering.
if a trooper pulls you over versus a Becker cop, you're probably fine. So, yes. Good question.
Was it one of our finest that pulled you over today?
I just used myself. I didn't want to say the mayor.
I didn't.
It was a friend of mine. I get
Hope
it.
you-
So, all right. Any other questions on anything?
Very thorough as usual. Thank you.
I appreciate it. And this will be, just for everyone who might be watching, this will be put on the website here either tonight or tomorrow so people can view it as well. And all past ones are there as well too. So, but if anybody has any questions, please look me up. Always willing to discuss this. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, guest and open forum. Anyone here for guest and open forum? Seeing none, we'll move on to committee reports. Planning Commission.
We can talk planning. Planning Commission, we had several items. We had C and D, B, C, D, that are under 9 for us tonight, so we will not steal thunder there. We also had a public hearing that we held on special events, but that is continued into next month. So we're getting a little more, there was a couple questions, so that since there wasn't the urgency on that, we're just gonna table it for the month, get the questions answered, then that'll come forward after that, likely.
Okay. Golf Committee.
Golf committee, we kind of didn't really meet. There was only me and Josh. So he touched on the financials as usual, but we didn't do anything else.
All right. Joint Planning.
Joint planning, we just heard some language updates to ordinances.
Any other committees that were missed? No? All right, we'll move on to Board Committee and Consultant Reports. The BAC Youth Ball Fields Edition. Mr. Lisson.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Before you tonight, I have an RCA and Resolution 2331, looking for council approval to add 2 ball fields, junior ball fields at the BAC. In your packet, I did include kind of an overhead sketch, my sketch, so it's pretty rude, but just to give you a general idea of where it would go in case you didn't know, kind of be to the east of the current 2 junior ball fields, kind of along the fence line between the BAC and the wastewater facility. A little background, I did include in the packet for your review. We have representatives from the Becker Youth Baseball Association here tonight to kind of support this and answer questions if you have any that I can't answer. They have put together a proposal, so they identified a need for space as their participation grows in their youth program. We as a staff, when we hear needs, we like to see support for, what, do you just want this, or is this a real need? So they did put together a very good report. I included that. That kind of outlines what they're looking for. They had a three-phase approach in their report, so I did include that for you guys to look at. Let's see, kind of lays out what they need, identifies their space needs. What we're looking at tonight would address phase one of that report. So their junior ball program, so that's T-ball and coach pitch, so ages 4 through 7. They're seeing increased participation from 2021 to 2022. The numbers were up 10%. With that increased participation, there's an increased demand from those same teams for playing more games, more practices, those kinds of things. With 2 fields that really can be utilized for that. Those teams are either having to stack practices, so you have young kids in that age range having to practice later at night, sometimes after 8 o'clock up to 9 o'clock at night. And they, let's see, also have to set up sometimes in the green space, so use temporary bases, those kind of things. Youth baseball did do a survey of those users. Some of the feedback they had were they'd like to play on a permanent field versus temporary fields. They want balance between family and sports life. So practicing later at night with that age group is difficult, and or adding more practices on weekends is not desirable. So those are things that they outlined in their report that you guys have. If we proceeded with this project, estimated cost for it would be $20,750. So that would include the fencing, bases and benches, field lime, so we do base cutouts rather than a full infield of lime. And then we add a little bit for miscellaneous if there's small costs that we don't account for there. Becker Youth Baseball did come, they've discussed their needs with city staff. They also did present this to the Park and Rec Committee. So we had a good discussion there about that. After that discussion, we as city staff, along with our Park and Rec Committee, did feel like phase one is something that we could address now, giving money that we have set aside in our park CIP. In addition, Becker Youth Baseball has also obtained funding for this project to help offset the cost. So they did apply for a grant from the Minnesota Twins, the Field for Kids grant. They did get an award of $7,000 from the Twins for this project. They also are willing to contribute $2,500 from concession stand sales from last year to help offset that cost. So that's about $9,500 they would contribute, so that's about 45% of the project cost. So it's good to identify a need, but if you can help cover the costs as well, we really appreciate that. So showing that they have skin in the game for this project. The remaining cost of that project we would say would come out of the CIP for our parks. That's approximately $11,250. So we did have 2 separate line items in the CIP. One was $20,000 in 2022 for concrete by the concessions building. That was a project that was kind of identified in our park study. As we discussed it more with our main user of that area, the baseball, that would not be a high priority for them. There's other things, including like these youth baseball fields, that would be a project that they would identify as a greater need. So we could potentially use those funds. If we did that, we would remove that from the CIP. We wouldn't include that as a project anymore, not really something needed. And or for 2023, we have $75,000 in there for BAC facilities. So upgrades to that facility to continue to maintain it, make it a usable space for the baseball teams, football teams, lacrosse teams, everybody that uses that space. So that's where we would propose the funding on the city side come from. So just kind of summarize everything. Becker Youth Baseball has identified their need. They put their need in writing. They included some numbers and feedback from their users that kind of justify their need. They've helped secure some funding, so they've brought some funding to the table, which we like to see. We do have funds in the CIP that could cover our portion of that cost. And then in addition of these 2 fields would address that need for that age group for quite a while. I mean, you're adding 2 full fields, so that would address their need for, I don't know, maybe next 10 years, depending upon how fast our city grows and participation grows. And it really wouldn't impact our multi-use of that space. So we can still program lacrosse, football. It's not going to take up a lot of space. So we've discussed that with Bart and Josh already. So we're kind of maintaining the space. We're adding a nice addition to the space. and they're bringing some funds to help cover it. So that's kind of my presentation on that. If you have any questions, I can address those. If I can't, I have backup to help me, so. Yes, Mike.
I have one question. Is the irrigation system gonna handle this okay?
It's already irrigated by our,
That's
that,
what I
that
mean.
space is already irrigated. So I did talk to Jason just to see if he had any concerns about where we were laying it out, if it'd have to be any major changes. He didn't feel like there'd be any major changes we'd have to make, so, yep.
I forgot to ask about that at the meeting.
Nope, it's already irrigated space, so,
Okay.
yep.
Chris, can you just walk through your diagram? Just for, I want to understand like the needs that we utilized this space. And you're going to be putting those T-ball.
So we would do, in there you have a cutout, so what youth baseball kind of proposed, instead of having a full lime infield, like the two current junior ball fields, we just do cutouts for the bases. So you could remove the bases and you'd still have a very small space of lime as opposed to that full infield. So you could still technically put a football field into that area and you'd have less impact than you would if it was a full lime infield. Last year, we programmed the youth football on the south green space and used that as kind of the main game field. So this space wasn't utilized for a full football field last year, so we're not really, wouldn't be impeding on that. And we could potentially even keep going to the north a little bit with the football field and still squeeze that in, so. And then we've also talked about potentially lacrosse could be, if that space is needed, or we could move them, some of them to potentially Pleasant Valley. So it was discussed pretty thoroughly with Bart and how that space is programmed, and this wouldn't impact what we currently program at the space.
Okay.
Yep, good
So there
question.
could still be multiple users throughout the seasons.
Yep, I mean, it's an athletic complex, right? We don't, it's
Yeah.
not a baseball complex, not a football, lacrosse complex. It's gotta be, the goal is to keep it usable for all the groups that do use it, so.
I just had a comment as I was going through, when I was reading the packet the other night, it was just how much thankful that the detail was there, cause, you know, we've heard before from, you know, different youth sports groups that, oh, we need this, you know, and didn't really have numbers or what, and if you don't have a child in that, you know, if I don't have a child that plays soccer, I have no idea if soccer needs the room or not, you know, and I'm
Right.
probably not gonna go sit there on a Saturday. So, you know, it was really good to see, in, you know, having been a former coach pitch, retired coach pitcher,
Yep.
you know, having had to have practices, you know, when you have somebody in the, you know, somebody using the infield, and then you have to go and steal their outfield or something just to have practice. And of course, you know, the bomber comes up and launches a ball back into, you know.
Yep.
So, it was needed a while ago even, so, but good to see the numbers though, so that, you know, as people do ask questions and that it's really good to see the numbers, that there was thought put into it, and that it's not, oh, we're just trying to, you know, first group to come along, we're spending money, you know. So,
Yeah, if we didn't have that support, I wouldn't be standing here, so, I mean, we need those things to back up what we're doing, yep.
absolutely, so.
Otherwise, if there's no other questions, motion and a second approving the resolution would be appreciated.
I make a motion to approve resolution 2331, adding 2 youth baseball fields to the BAC.
Second.
Motion from Mike, second from Robin. Any other discussion? Hearing none, those in favor can state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Zoning and subdivision code rewrite agreement. Mr. Sanders.
I'll leave the eagle up. Thank you, Mayor, Council.
I know. Can I just say, Susan, you took this photo that we're all like enjoying the background on. Thank you.
Very cool.
It's very nice.
And on that, this is not a Chapter 11 edit. This is even more exciting. So we have before you tonight, we've gone through interviews, Planning Commission and staff were able to interview 3 different consultants who submitted proposals to rewrite the zoning code. And out of those 3, excuse me, staff is recommending and Planning Commission is recommending approval of entering into contract with MSA Professional Services to take us through that rewrite. It would be over the course of roughly a couple years, but it would involve some public engagement, which is a big part of it, And MSA will do, we believe will do a good job of taking us through. We do have Claire here from MSA tonight. She was sent up impromptu at the end, so. We have a few edits that we're working through on the contract with the city attorney, but the resolution before you would allow the attorney to make those edits to the contract that's in your packet. Planning Commission again recommended this, and funds have been budgeted within the CIP for 2023 and 24, and the project cost would not exceed $85,000. If there was amendments at the end, that would have to come through council. So with that, I'll take any questions, and if there are none, we're seeking a motion and second. Adopting Resolution 2330, which would approve the agreement for professional services for the zoning code rewrite.
Just make a comment here too, having sat, through the, through the interviews, one of the things I really liked with this, is, you folks did Brainerd's, code rewrite not too long ago, and, being able to see everything on a one page. So if it was, if it was your house, you could have all the, what your setback is, what your fence, all that kind of stuff, being able to see it on one page, and being more of a visual person, you can, there was just, there's a reason, everybody, it was unanimous that we went this way, and,
I agree.
just being able to see that, so, I'm really looking forward to, the product that's gonna come out of this, so.
Yeah, that's a, thank you. It's a very good point, and simplicity and focus of this rewrite is to make it more simple, more easily read by the public and developers and builders, so.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to adopt Resolution 2330, approving the agreement for professional services for the Becker zoning subdivision code rewrite.
I'll second that.
Motion from Robin, second from Mike. Any other discussion? Hearing none, those in favor can state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving into the drive-through restaurant conditional use permit. Mr. Sanders.
Yes, more of me. So before you tonight, we're excited to bring to you a drive-through conditional use permit for a drive-through restaurant adjacent to where Dueling Brews is. And yes, this will be Dairy Queen. We didn't necessarily put it in there, but it will be. So for those in the public, you can now confirm that it is Dairy Queen. We have received building plans for that. They've been reviewed. So tonight, the conditional use permit itself in resolution 2329, we didn't receive any written public comment or actual public comment at the meeting during the public hearing. There was some discussion on traffic, but conditions within the conditional use permit cover that, similar to what we had at the school, similar to what we've had at Charlie's. If there are any issues, we will. One of the conditions is that they agree to work with the city on a mutually agreeable solution. Engineering has reviewed these as well, so there are a few grading changes that will have to be made on the site just due to the nature of what they're doing, treating some of that before it hits the storm sewer. But they'll be working on those as well. And MnDOT has reviewed their plans as well, but there are conditions covering that MnDOT has a say on what they do adjacent to Highway 10. So with resolution 2329, we're seeking for a motion in a second adopting that resolution, which would approve the CUP for a drive-through restaurant located at 14245 Bank Street. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Jacob, one of the things that I'm very cautious about on Bank Street is stacking
Yes.
going into a drive-through. Is there any, I was just trying to evaluate how many parking spots there were.
So I think there are roughly 30 parking spaces. I want to say close to 30 or over parking spaces. And stacking, this is one of the things that came up with Planning Commission. You can stack from the point of the menu boards where they do, I think it's roughly 8 cars that you can fit between there. If you were to go all the way back towards the apron, which you can stack, that way it'd be 16. So you can fit a number in. This also, if you'll notice on the site plan, as you go out of the site there, if you're going around Dairy Queen and you're leaving the site on the southeast side, they have pull-ins for people who have larger orders and stuff, so they'll direct them to sit there as other people move through.
Okay.
So that was brought up, that was a concern of planning commissions as well. And one of the things I will also point out is that the ingress and egress of each, of Dueling Brews and of this one are staggered. And what I mean by that is the ingress, so the entrance to the site for Dueling Brews and the entrance for Dairy Queen are on opposite sides of the egress, which is good because your entrance and exits aren't on the same side.
Okay.
But we do have, again, the conditions in there that if it becomes an issue, that the property owner agrees to work with the city on a solution for that.
We
That is
also
a valid
We
concern.
also discussed different scenarios of what could be done too, and so I'm not really too concerned about it at this point in time. In the early days, I'm sure there'll be an issue because everybody's gonna wanna go there and try it, you know.
Everybody will be there first. Yep.
So I think it's 32 is what I've counted, so 32 spaces.
Okay.
Yeah, from a parking standpoint, I think they had more,
They did.
like considerably more than they
Way
needed. And
more.
I think our main issue, what we were talking about was the drive-through
Yeah,
issue.
I think they needed 10 and they have like 30 or
Yeah.
something like that.
They had 32 and they didn't need that many, so.
Perfect.
But yeah, like I say, it is covered in there to ensure that we at least have something if we do need to come back and revisit that.
Now that we got 2 more ball fields, we'll have,
Anticipate it'll be busy.
Lots of promises for ice cream afterwards.
I didn't bring dilly bars, sorry. So,
Compliments of the mayor.
yeah.
Michael, you are getting me in trouble tonight, aren't you? Ugh.
I'll make a motion to approve, resolution 2329, drive-through restaurant, conditional use permit.
I'll second.
Motion from Mike, second from Becky. Any other discussion? Hearing none, those in favor can state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. One last one, Sherburne County Power Plant Property Development Master Plan.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, Council. So this has been worked on for over a year now, and it's actually been completed, but we wanted to wait until the AUAR was all finished and through before we presented this for adoption. Adoption doesn't mean that you have to do everything in this plan. It's just a guiding tool that will help facilitate development down there and speed up the process for those. It will help guide some of the planning. As quoted in the RCA for this, it is, again, a flexible tool that presents a vision and framework and principles. There is an understanding that it will assist in that and that future development and budgets can shift the goals in this. So you're not locked in on anything that's in here, but again, it does help staff excel and the city do development on that side with approximately about 1,800 acres of buffer property. So with that, we're seeking for and Planning Commission did recommend adoption of this via Resolution 2305, PC 2305. So with that, seeking a motion and a second at adopting Resolution 2328 to adopt the Sherburne County Power Plant Development Master Plan. It's a mouthful, so. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution 2328, adopting the Sherburne County Power Plant Development Master Plan.
I'll second that.
Motion from Rick, second from Mike. Any other discussion? Hearing none, those in favor can state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Thank you.
Thank you. And I didn't use charrette, so.
First time, I think.
Property sale with Becker Township, Mr. Knutson.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight, we're here to discuss the purchase agreement for the old fire hall with the Becker Township. So as you all know, we've been working on this for quite some time. It died and has been resurrected, and we're so close right now to making something happen there. So the project, just for everybody that's viewing or going to view this, we've been working with the township. It's joint owned. The high bays have been the city property for quite some time. The office space has been debated back and forth, who owns the building, who owns the property. And as we've talked this thing through, really the best way to come to some consensus was getting one entity to own the property. So after many, many meetings and many, many workshops. We're here tonight with a proposal on the table that was presented to the Becker Town Board on their March, or at their March 20th meeting, and they have approved it and sent it for us here tonight to consider it. It's taking all of those parcels and combining them. Basically, we're taking the Township Hall area, the old fire hall, and then a city-owned lot, and replatting that whole area into a new plat, which will be known as, this is very unique to us, T-Town Second Edition, with 3 individual parcels there. So it fits in line with what, everything else that we're doing in the area. It makes a usable lot for the city to still retain as a residential lot for us to do something with. It moves the boundary line in between the old fire hall office building and the current township hall. So it cleans up a lot of ills that have been over there for quite some time. Along with that, we are looking to remove the curbing on Hancock Street, the old fire truck access, if you will, onto Hancock Street. So with the rollover curb that's there, that curb and the concrete boulevard will be taking out, replaced with a high-rise curb, so it'll afford more on-street parking on Hancock. And this agreement would also add a exit only on the north side of that, the fire hall, so they could get parallel parking on the north side of the fire hall. The township does use the facility for their elections. As you know, the Legion has leased that building from both of us for quite some time as well. So the intention of the township, as it was the city's wishes, was to keep the Legion there, and I know they're working on that lease, a long-term lease for the Legion as well. So we did have our bid award, our bid opening, I should say, today for our street projects. We had anticipated or had hoped for a bid of around $50,000 for those street improvements, as called out in the purchase agreement. The bid came in at the low bid. It's not been verified yet, but the low bid it came in at $50,850 roughly for this alternate. So we should hit our mark as it relates to legal fees, platting expenses, and the construction. So with all that wrapped up, the next step is getting approval here tonight so we can sign off on it, set up a closing, and then get the work done yet this year. So I think that covered most of it, but I will stand for any questions should you have them.
Thank you to those that have been involved in this project. I know it was a several month long.
A lot of meetings.
A lot of meetings, a lot of digging through history, which was fun to hear about.
Well, I think there's a willingness on both parties to come to a desired outcome, so that was the driving force. So I think the community is going to be served well at the end result of this. So.
Mm-hmm.
I'll make a motion to approve adopting Resolution 2326, approving the sale of the old fire hall to Becker Township.
I'll second that.
Motion from Robin, second from Mike. Any other discussion? Hearing none, those in favor can state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Agreement for building official services with Rum River Consultants. Mr. LaRude.
Mayor Bertram, city council members, we've had our building official, staff building official for about a month now, and the contract with Metro West expires on Friday. That'll be the end of the 30-day notice. With that, one of the things there, one of the main reasons for moving the building inspection services in-house was customer service, so we could have more control in delivering better service than has been in the past. One thing we're going to need is if the building official is on vacation, has a lot of work to do, and there's a backlog, or for whatever reason couldn't do a plan review, to have a backfill those services. And so we met with Rum River Consulting Services a couple of weeks ago. They do this service for a variety of cities. Some they're the full building official, and some in the capacity that we're talking about here where they will supplement the service and really is just kind of an on-demand service. So they would only do work that's given to them either by the building official, Jacob, or myself, and the contract is cancelable at 60 days. I believe the contract you have in here it has been fully reviewed by the city attorney, but I will verify that. I think that's all up to date. But the resolution as it sits does allow the city attorney to review it, and you approve those changes in advance.
And so with that, I would request a motion to adopt Resolution 2325, entering into an agreement for building inspection services with Rum River Ventures LLC. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Make a motion to approve Resolution 25, approving the agreement with Rum River Ventures LLC.
Second.
Motion from Rick, second from Robin. Any other discussion? Hearing none, those in favor can state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Administrator and staff reports. Road contracting for schematic design for City Hall, PD facility study. Chief Balloon.
Mayor, council, thanks again. As you know, we've been engaged in a planning process or a study process with Wold Architects out of St. Paul since last fall to examine both the police department and City Hall for space needs moving forward. Part of the next process, as I believe was discussed at the last council meeting, we had requested from them a proposal to move us along into the next part of the process, which is this schematic design process stuff. In particular, what they're looking to do is finalize a layout for the police department and City Hall to determine optimal layout. They'd meet with each department to further discuss department needs, develop a level of detail to better detail a cost estimate for proposed work, including any soft costs, site development costs, and certainly meet with any other department officials, planning, engineering, and building, et cetera. So per them, this is the next part of this process, which now we get into the part of the process which involves percentages related to the final cost of a project if we were to move that far down the road. I think it's important to note for those that might be watching, we're not saying we're building anything yet. We're still just moving the process along to see if we can get there. So this gets us to the point of just looking at what the boxes look like that they proposed in some of the maps. So that being said, would be looking for a motion and second to approve. This is a cost of $59,000 to move this to that next level. Again, this was talked about in past workshop meetings and of course the last council meeting to a degree. So building funds, facility funds would be utilized as we have with the rest of this project to pay for this. So again, motion second to approve us entering into finalizing this part of the contract with Wold Architects for the schematic design. And I'd certainly stand for any questions that you have.
Appears the next phase is very timely for us with the cost estimating portion of this process in June and July, which is when we start our budgeting process. So that's nice.
Make a motion to approve, accept the proposal from Wold Architects for continuation in the building study.
I'll second.
Motion from Rick, second from Becky. Any other discussion? Hearing none, those in favor can state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Consent agenda, Mr. LaRue.
Mayor Bertram, city council members, items for approval on tonight's consent agenda include the revised hiring and termination report for Pebble Creek Golf Course and the Becker Community Center. Adopt Resolution 23-32 approving 2022 year-end transfers. Adopt Resolution 23-27 to approve the transfers between transfer funds and closed bank account. And approving Amendment 1 to the Water Comprehensive Plan update to investigate municipal water sources. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Make a motion, we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion from Mike, second from Robin. Any other discussion? Hearing none, those in favor can state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Payment of the bills.
Make a motion to pay the bills.
I'll second.
Motion from Robin, second from Becky. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor can state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. One anniversary announcement for the month of April. It is Police Officer Paul Hickerson. He is celebrating 8 years with us. Wow. So congratulations to Officer Hickerson. Does council have anything else for the betterment of Becker? I'll ask for a motion to adjourn then.
Move we adjourn.
Second.
Motion from Mike, second from Robin. Those in favor may state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. We are adjourned at 5:54 PM.